What if I told you Erica Mena didn't walk into court today with just a statement? No, she walked in with a loaded weapon. Something so powerful, so destructive, it had the potential to obliterate everything in its path. And no, we're not talking about a gun or any kind of physical weapon. We're talking about something far more dangerous: files. Files so toxic, so devastating that even the judge had to pause mid-hearing, visibly shaken by what was about to unfold. "Play the audio, Your Honor," Erica said. That was it. No frantic emotions, no shouting, just a calm, controlled demeanor. She knew. She was prepared. And just like that, with one simple sentence, the room was about to explode. The speaker buzzed to life, and then, boom! A voice echoed through the courtroom. "Delete the records. I'll handle Erica later." Every person in that room froze. The silence was deafening. Mendeecees. His jaw went pale. His lawyer looked like he might drop dead on the spot. The entire courtroom held its breath. What just happened? Where had this come from? How long had Erica been holding on to this bombshell? And more importantly, why wait until now to drop it? Was this revenge? Was this protection? Or was this Erica finally saying, "I'm done playing the victim"? Because, my friends, what came next had even the producers screaming, fans crying, and one juror begging to be excused from the proceedings. You think you've heard the full story? You haven't heard anything yet. Stay with me, because if these leaked files are real, then Mendeecees is not just guilty. He's finished. His entire empire is about to come crashing down. The courtroom? Packed. Every seat filled. Every camera rolling in absolute silence. And the eyes of the world were on one woman. Erica Mena. Dressed in black, she looked like someone who had come to bury something. Or someone. Her gaze, cold. Her posture, steady. But in her hands was a folder so thick it could have been mistaken for a miniature coffin. And in that folder, Mendeecees' entire career. "Ms. Mena, do you have something to submit into evidence?" the judge asked, breaking the silence. Her lawyer stood confidently. "Yes, Your Honor. We are submitting sealed documents previously protected under NDA, including audio files, text logs, and video snippets relevant to the paternity dispute and financial concealment." Boom. The atmosphere shifted. People leaned forward in their seats, eager to know what was coming. Even Mendeecees, usually so self-assured, looked like he'd bitten into something rotten. But let's rewind for a second. This wasn't just about a DNA test anymore. No. This wasn't even about whether or not Mendeecees was hiding something from the world. This was war. Personal, televised, and irreversible. You see, long before this court date, Erica had been dropping hints online. Cryptic tweets, an Instagram story zoomed in on a receipt, just enough to make people start wondering. A post of baby shoes with the caption, "Hope." Everyone thought she was grieving. Turns out she wasn't grieving at all. She was gathering evidence. Weeks before this hearing, an anonymous Reddit account had posted what seemed to be screenshots of Mendeecees texting someone under a burner name, Dre R. In those texts, Mendeecees discussed shutting Erica down before she ever had the chance to take him to court. At the time, these screenshots were dismissed as fake, Photoshop, just another troll on the internet. But today, those screenshots were Exhibit A. And let me tell you, the courtroom felt every single word. Erica leaned forward, the judge giving the green light to unseal a portion of the evidence. Her lawyer tapped the play button on a small device. The courtroom speakers crackled, and then the voice of Mendeecees filled the room. "You think I'm going to let her take everything? I'll delete the trail before she ever steps into a courthouse." Gasps, audible, unstoppable. Even the reporters who had seen it all dropped their pens, but Mendeecees' lawyer was quick to object. "Your Honor, we question the authenticity of this audio. It could be AI generated," but Erica's lawyer didn't even flinch. "We had it forensically verified, time-stamped, GPS tagged, and the voice was authenticated by an independent lab 3 weeks ago. This wasn't just a courtroom anymore. No, this was a crime scene. And Erica? She was the one holding the weapon. Her voice, her receipts, her impeccable timing. Then came the texts. They appeared on the screen, so large you could see every single punctuation mark. Conversations between Mendeecees and someone labeled only as C, believed to be a former assistant. They discussed moving money out of joint accounts, hiring a ghostwriter for legal responses, and how to spin it all before Mona Scott Young. Yes, the Mona Scott Young, the executive producer of Love and Hip Hop, found out. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a personal issue anymore. This was a network liability. The stakes were bigger than Mendeecees could have ever imagined. The audience outside the courtroom? Chaotic. Fans, bloggers, conspiracy theorists, they were all losing their minds. Twitter? On fire? Reddit? Melting down? Instagram Live? Full of blurry screenshots, exclusive reactions, and live updates from people who claimed to know Erica's cousin and Mendeecees' deepest secrets. As the evidence rolled, in so did the reactions. Erica's sister, Omar Rosa, was seen wiping away tears. A reporter overheard her whisper, "She didn't want to do this, but he made her." Then came Exhibit B, a digital folder titled Baby Proof Plan, Final. No one knew what it meant until the first image opened. A scanned contract, a confidentiality agreement signed by Erica, Mendeecees, and a third party whose name had been redacted. The date? 3 weeks before the DNA dispute ever began. The document stated that any test results, custody negotiations, or settlement talks must remain off the record. Erica had agreed, until she found out that Mendeecees had allegedly faked the original DNA paperwork. Yes, you heard that right. Mendeecees had allegedly faked the paternity test results. The court was shown a side-by-side comparison of 2 DNA reports, both with the same child's name, but different fathers listed. According to Erica's legal team, the report she received had been altered. Her team had obtained the original lab results directly from the source, using a sealed subpoena 2 weeks earlier. And guess what? The father's name was listed as Mendeecees on both reports, but in the version sent to Erica, his name had been changed to inconclusive. Now the questions hit like a tidal wave. Who changed it? Why? And how deep does this go? In the back row, a woman stood up and left, tears streaming down her face. She was later confirmed to be Mendeecees' cousin. When asked by the press outside, she simply said, "He's been lying to all of us." Inside the courtroom, Erica remained calm, but her hands trembled ever so slightly when she said, "Under oath, I wasn't trying to ruin him. I was trying to protect my son from lies." The judge called a recess, but not before issuing a stern warning. This court will not tolerate tampering, threats, or any interference with evidence. And with that, silence fell. Erica stepped out, briefly surrounded by legal aides. Mendeecees? He stayed inside, head down, talking to his lawyer in whispers. But then, something unexpected happened. As the courtroom settled in for the recess, the air was thick with tension. The silence was broken only by the whispers of legal aides scurrying between tables, but the real drama was unfolding outside those walls. The media had already begun its frenzy, every outlet scrambling to catch up with the bombshells that had just been dropped. Fans flooded social media with mixed emotions. Some stood by Erica, praising her strength for exposing the truth, while others turned against Mendeecees, claiming he'd been playing the world all along. Social media, once a place for trivial memes and cat videos, had now become a battlefield for a war far more important than anyone had anticipated. The hashtags were born almost immediately. Truth revealed, Mendeecees exposed, and Erica wins. But inside the courtroom, the stakes were even higher. When the recess ended, the door swung open and Erica re-entered, holding her phone. She whispered something to her lawyer, and the tension in the room shot up to a new level. It was clear that the next piece of evidence wasn't just more audio or text. It was something big. Everyone could feel it. The air seemed to thicken as Erica sat back down, her fingers tracing the folder before her. The judge looked up, his tired eyes scanning the room. "Are we ready to proceed?" Erica's lawyer stood, his tone calm but filled with authority. "Yes, Your Honor. We have something new." The courtroom held its breath. The tension was unbearable. The weight of the silence seemed to make every heartbeat louder. Even the judge, normally composed, showed a flicker of curiosity in his expression. "What is it?" Erica's lawyer moved forward, taking a small black USB stick and placing it carefully on the evidence table. The room seemed to tighten around the device as if the very air was holding its breath. The judge's gaze sharpened. "What's this?" "This is surveillance footage obtained from a private source that directly contradicts the defendant's previous alibi," Erica's lawyer replied, his voice unwavering. Mendeecees' lawyer shot to his feet, eyes wide, a flurry of words caught in his throat. The defense lawyer had been expecting evidence, but not something like this. This could be tampered with. We didn't have access to this footage. But Erica's attorney simply shook his head, his face hardening. "It's real. Your Honor, we had it forensically verified. Timestamped, GPS tagged, and authenticated by an independent lab 3 weeks ago." The judge paused, glancing at the courtroom before giving the nod to proceed. The tension was so thick, it felt as though time itself had slowed down. The entire world was waiting for this moment, for the piece of evidence that would make or break Mendeecees' case. The lights dimmed and the screen flickered to life. What followed was nothing short of damning. There, in full color, was Mendeecees. His face was unmistakable, even though he was wearing a hoodie and his cap was pulled low. But there was no mistaking him. He was entering a building through a side door. No entourage, no camera crew, no excuses. Just Mendeecees. The timestamp on the footage matched the very day he had claimed to be in Atlanta filming a Love and Hip Hop reunion special. The defense lawyer stood, his face going white as the footage played. "Your Honor, we object. This could have been staged." But there was no room for objections now. The court had already seen the footage, and Mendeecees' alibi was in tatters. The defense's weak argument could no longer hold water. The judge's eyes were sharp and his voice quiet, but there was an unshakable finality in his tone. "Let's take a 5-minute break," he said, his gaze never leaving Mendeecees. "Both sides will prepare for the next arguments." The courtroom erupted in whispers. A gasp of disbelief rippled through the crowd as the lights flickered back on. Mendeecees' attorney, flustered and red-faced, moved quickly to his client's side. His efforts were futile. The footage spoke for itself. The audience, composed of reporters, fans, and members of the public, had witnessed the unraveling of a carefully crafted defense. Mendeecees reached for a bottle of water, but his hand missed. His fingers trembled and he let the bottle fall, his gaze vacant. He was a man who had been exposed, standing in front of the very world he had worked so hard to manipulate. His mother, seated behind him, clutched her rosary tightly, her lips moving in silent prayer. Outside the courthouse, the chaos intensified. The media had already latched onto the shocking footage, and the internet was ablaze with theories. Fans were dissecting every frame, every detail, speculating on how much more Mendeecees had been hiding. The pressure was mounting. People were no longer just fans. They had become part of the drama. They were divided, polarized between Erica's side and Mendeecees' supporters. Erica's team, ever vigilant, was quick to respond. They released a statement that was concise, clear, and powerful. Erica came to court seeking peace, not chaos. She only brought forward evidence after repeated silence and obstruction. This is about truth for her and for her child. The message was calculated, strategic, and it painted Erica as the victim in all of this. A mother seeking the truth, a woman who had been wronged but was now standing tall for her son. But the biggest twist was still to come. The kind of twist that would ensure no one left that courtroom unchanged. When the court resumed, Mendeecees had finally decided to speak for the first time. His lawyer stood and addressed the room with an air of calm that seemed to crack with every word. "Your Honor, before we continue, I have a statement to make." Mendeecees rose from his seat, his shoulders squared, his expression firm. His body language screamed confidence, but there was a tremor in his voice that betrayed his true feelings. "The footage presented today does not prove what Ms. Mina claims. I was at that lab, yes, but I was picking up a court document, not altering anything. I would never lie about my paternity or my obligations as a father." He paused, glancing over at Erica. "I asked the court to consider the context. My heart was in the right place. Everything I did for my family, for my son." His voice cracked on the last words. A collective hush fell over the courtroom. The defense's argument was weak, but Mendeecees wasn't done. He had come prepared with another ace in the hole. From his lawyer's bag, a second USB stick was produced. The defense lawyer inserted the device into the courtroom's computer and pressed play. But this time, nothing. The screen flickered, and then an error message appeared. The file was corrupted. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. The audience stared at the screen, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the footage remained inaccessible. Mendeecees' last hope had been dashed in an instant. The defense lawyer, flustered and unsure of what to do next, stammered, "It's just a technical issue, Your Honor. Nothing more." The damage had been done. The courtroom smelled something. Foul. And it wasn't just the corrupted file. The audience knew something was off. A sense of foul play hung in the air. Erica's lawyer stood, calm and composed. "Your Honor, if the defense's own files are unreliable, we rely solely on our verified audio, texts, and video presented earlier." It was a mic drop moment. Erica's lawyer didn't need to say another word. The evidence was clear. Mendeecees' defense was crumbling, and he had nothing left to protect him. But the final blow? It came when the prosecution introduced their next witness, a digital forensics expert. The man was brief, precise, and armed with a chart of metadata and timestamps that clearly showed how every file Erica's team submitted bore consistent signatures, while the defense's files had mismatched coding, indicating they'd been altered post-production. The jury exchanged looks of concern. The weight of the testimony sank in. This wasn't just a case of a paternity dispute anymore. This was fraud. A deliberate attempt to manipulate the truth. Then came the emotional testimony of a mutual friend, Tillman, a childhood confidant of Mendeecees. Tillman recounted private messages he had received from Mendeecees last year, expressing regret over taking his relationship with Erica for granted. Tillman read the DMs aloud, his voice cracking with emotion as he recalled Mendeecees' words. "I fear I'll lose everything, including our son's future, if I don't control the narrative." It was a raw, vulnerable moment, one that shattered any remaining illusion of Mendeecees' innocence. His own words had condemned him. The room fell into stunned silence. The weight of that testimony lingered in the air like a thick fog. Even the jury seemed to struggle with what they'd just heard. The truth was coming out in full force now, and there was no hiding from it. The judge waved the jury away for deliberations, but it was clear. This wasn't just about paternity anymore. This was about deception, manipulation, and betrayal. And the lies that had been carefully constructed over time were unraveling, piece by piece. When the jury returned, the judge spoke firmly, his voice carrying an air of finality. "I find credible indication of tampering with evidence. A formal contempt hearing will follow." Mendeecees' face drained of color. His entire defense had crumbled under the weight of the truth. But the judge wasn't finished. "On the subject of paternity and co-parenting," he said, "the court orders immediate voluntary DNA testing to occur under my supervision. Any attempts to delay without medical necessity will be deemed contempt." Erica let out a slow, relieved breath. She had won, at least for now. As the court was adjourned, Erica stood, head held high. She flanked her lawyer, and her sister Omar Rosa whispered, "You did it," as they passed the media wall. Meanwhile, Mendeecees sat motionless, the weight of the court's ruling pressing down on him. His lawyer whispered urgently, "We need a statement tonight." But outside, the public had already spoken. The damage was done, and no matter how Mendeecees tried to spin it, the truth had come out.